Do you know, I've been waiting to get this fella on for ages. I mean, we haven't even had him on the radio for what seems like about 6 months now. But we've decided that he had a bit of free time. I had a bit of free time. So why not get on and have a natter? It is the national treasure and legend, Mr. Steve Legg.
Thank you. What happened to the round of applause?
Oh, I haven't got my jingle button here, you see, but there we go.
Hang on a minute.
Hey, Steve Legg. Yeah. Oh, look at that. He's come prepared, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we're not playing games here.
Now, hopefully, you'll have internet which will actually last the length of time that we want to talk for here, because if it's anything like your performances on the radio, you're the one who we tend to have problems with, Mr. Legg.
It's crazy, isn't it? I have BT phoning me every so often, promising me amazing internet, and it gets more and more expensive and less reliable.
So, do you remember the first time we ever met each other? Because I was doing some calculations the other day. I think it was my wife Sam who asked and said, "You've known Steve quite a long time, haven't you?" And I started reflecting. Do you remember the first time we ever met?
I remember vividly. I remember where we were. It was at another station. I was leaning against the wall chatting to Peter Wooding. He would come in to do some news as a freelancer, and you walked by and you said hello. And I'm thinking, got to be at least 5 years ago.
Well, I was thinking that because we got on like a house on fire, and it's not often, is it, that you meet a person there and then, and
connect straight away.
The interview ended, and
I don't think you were even interviewing me. You just spoke to me
about. I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't even interview me, Gareth. You just walked by and came and said hello.
And then, but didn't I get you on the radio anyway? Because I think I was doing an afternoon show then. And I think I went, "Oh, if you're free, come on the radio now and have a chat about your magazine." I'm sure
Possibly.
we had a chat somewhere in some sort of studio. But that would have been quite a few years ago now. And talk about a house on fire. We just literally clicked the same sense of humour and stuff. So I wanted to catch up with you because, of course, you've been having a difficult time at the moment, haven't you, to say the least?
Do you know what? It's been a challenging 2 years.
And when did this challenge start for you, Steve? Because I remember, well, again, talk about memory corner. I remember that you sent us a message and you said, "Now, I've been to see the doctor and I have had a diagnosis, but everything will be all right." So you pick up from there.
Yeah, essentially, can I just have a quick cough? Sorry about that. Yeah, so Gareth, essentially 2 years ago, almost to the day, I think, I was lying in bed. My wife wandered through from our ensuite. I sound so posh, don't I? And she saw my big feet sticking out the end of the bed, and she noticed a little mark on the sole of my right foot. And she said, "What's that?" And I had a look, and it didn't hurt at all. And I thought it looked like a tiny little blood blister, probably just a few millimetres, dark, black. And I said, "Oh, it's probably nothing, just me overwalking the dog." And she nagged and nagged. And I've learned over the years, a nagging wife is a great thing generally, and girlfriend and partner, and to listen to them. And because it was in the middle of COVID, I realised I didn't have to go to the doctors, but I could take a photo. And I thought, well, this is great, because as men, generally, we hate wasting doctors' times. We hate going to the GP. It's a waste of time, generally, isn't it? So we don't do it, and things get bad. So I took a photo, sent it to the quack. She said, "Please come in. I'd love to see you." So I went in. She had a little poke at it. She said, "I'm not sure." She said, "I need to refer you to a dermatologist." And I thought, well, hang on a minute here. I've got lovely skin. I haven't had a spot since I was 13. But then I realised, of course, dermatology is skin, and it was a mark on the skin. Went over to Worthing. Got on like a house on fire with this Greek doctor. And he came in, he had a little bit of a poke, and he said, "I'm not sure." He said, "To be on the safe side, you need a biopsy." And I said, "Come on, Doc, how long's that going to take?" He said, "Well, probably another fortnight, and ironically, you'll come back and see me." And we were laughing and joking. I even showed him a magic trick. And I said, "Look, any chance you could do it now?" And he said, "Oh, go on then." So he said, "Look, I've got to warn you, this is really going to hurt, because I need to do a biopsy, give you painkillers into the underside of your foot, which is the most sensitive part of your body. And I've got a high pain threshold, I really have." And he was fiddling around, And I said to him, I said, Doc, you're amazing. I can't even feel it. And he said, well, I haven't done it yet. And then, and then he stuck it into my foot. Gareth almost kicked him in the face. It was agony. And he said, you've got to keep still. You're going to break the needle in half. It will get even worse. So anyway, he did the biopsy. Really painful. 2 weeks later, it was a Thursday night, remember it vividly, 5:15, watching the chase, big mug of coffee. And he phoned up and he said, we got the results of your biopsy and you've got skin cancer. And it rocked me so much, I didn't really ask any other questions. He said, we will be in touch. My wife came through, Becca, and she had a really big day the following day. She had been doing a degree at Moorlands and it was the graduation. And I thought, well, I don't want to spoil it for her. But she could tell from my face that something was up. But of course, I knew nothing really beyond skin cancer. And skin cancer can be a tiny little thing that you get lasered off, or it can be a killer. And it turned out, typical me, I had something really unusual. It's called acral lentiginous melanoma. So nothing to do with the sun, just a rogue gene in my body that mutated a little bit and had spread in my body. So essentially, to cut a very long story short, 3 operations, 2 on my foot. The second one went about 2 centimetres deep, cutting everything out. And when he told me 2 centimetres, I thought, hang on a minute, it'll go right through from the bottom to the top. Your foot is more than 2 centimetres. And that literally kept me sitting down for a few months. And he took out a lymph node in my groin because cancer spread somewhere and it goes through your lymphatic system. So he took one out of my groin that was cancerous, unfortunately, which meant the cancer had spread through my body. So this January, I had another big op, a really major op, where they took out all the lymph nodes in my groin and pelvis, leaving me with a 14-inch scar. Looks like I've had a dust up with a shark, and the shark won. I've been on immunotherapy. Chemo doesn't work with melanoma. You become such a cancer expert when you go through these things. The immunotherapy essentially supercharges your immune system to fight anything that shouldn't be there. I.e. the cancer, but sometimes it fights the stuff that should be there. So from October last year, it killed my pancreas. So left me with type 1 diabetes, which means I have to take insulin a number of times a day to keep on top of that. And it's been challenging. It really has. So the first lot of immunotherapy didn't work. I went back in April. I have scans every 3 months. Saw the oncologist. We just got back from a wonderful week at Spring Harvest. We'd all been down there together at Butlins.
I remember it.
In Minehead. And went in there and you could see she had tears in her eyes. And the nurse that was in there with her had tears in her eyes. And I thought, you don't need to be an expert in body language here to realise that things aren't good. And essentially she sat us down and said, unfortunately, the cancer had spread to the liver, the stomach, the spine and the brain. And that was a bit of a body blow, to say the least. And I said, how long have I got, Doc? What are we talking? Are we talking 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? Hoping she'd say, oh, no, probably 10, 15 years. She said, probably 5 months. And, yeah, you can imagine what that was like, getting news like that.
How do you, when you hear that, because people say that when your doctor says the word cancer, regardless of how serious it is, it's those words, it's that word cancer, isn't it, that you just immediately...
It's a big word, it's a C word. We don't even like saying the word cancer, do we? Yeah. It was a real shock.
I mean... And it's all
I'm probably one of the most positive people you'll ever wish to meet. And there wasn't a lot of positivity in that conversation. My wife Becca started crying. I was sort of holding it together until we talked about telling our girls. So we've got 5 daughters, and we mentioned that Amber was having a baby. And she said, yes, you should be around to hold the baby. And that's what set me off then. And she said, go and have a drink, come back and chat to me in a bit. And we went out for 10 minutes, had a few more tests. Someone said, would you like a drink? I said, I'll have a scotch, please. They didn't have any of that. So I had a glass of water. I'm so hardcore. We went back in there. We talked a little bit more. And just as we were leaving, to add insult to injury, it was one of those Columbo moments. And she said to me, oh, one more thing. You're not allowed to drive anymore either because of the specs in my brain. Wow. And I said, Doc, have you got any more bad news before we leave here today? So it was a day I won't forget easily. And we were then driving on to Gatwick Airport to pick up 2 of our daughters who'd been in Australia for a family wedding, and we had to pick them up, and they were so pleased to see us and buzzing in the car with all their news, and we knew we had to tell all 5 girls when we got home. That's a conversation, isn't it? To say your dad is dying and he might not be here by the middle of September.
You said, and I've known you, as I said, for a long time, but I wanted to just check that there wasn't anything that you didn't want to talk about.
No, absolutely.
Because
I'm
I've never
very
known
happy to talk about all of this.
Because I've never known you to be a person who talks about his emotions very much. So like you said, actually, you're the happy-go-lucky Steve.
Mm.
I've never had a message off you that has ever said, do you know what, I'm fed up and I'm having a bad day. So the reason I wanted to do this...
I've had a few of those, Gareth, to be honest with you.
Right.
I mean, in particular...
I can imagine.
In particular, yeah, that week, we heard the news on the Monday, and we told all the girls, they all came over. We've had such beautiful moments in this, and there's so much beauty to be seen. It turned out, our girls came back from Australia that day. My other daughter, Emmy, who's worked at a horse stud at Newmarket, moved back to the area on the 1st of April. So all 5 girls are around, and they all came over that night. And Becca told them, I couldn't tell them, I just hid up here in my office, and she told them the news, and they all came and gave me hugs and kisses, and we had an amazing week, really. They came for dinner every night. I couldn't eat a thing. I mean, in terms of diets go, this is amazing. I mean, you could see my cheekbones by Thursday. I'd lost so much weight because I just couldn't face any food.
So were you losing weight because you couldn't face food because of the anxiety and the worry, or was it the pain or the treatment?
I think it was the shock more than anything else. To be told that, I think, as we are young guys, I'm 56. We think we're invincible. We think we're going to live forever, don't we? Mm. Or certainly to 80s and 90s. To suddenly be told, well, hang on a minute, you won't be here for Christmas. You'll be having your last Father's Day in June. This is your last wedding anniversary coming up, when you think about that. And then in my mind, I had the fact that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I had gigs, and I had to be out on the road making people laugh, telling them about Jesus. And I thought, there's no way I can do this. And I spoke to a few friends, people like Ishmael and Carl Beach, Jonathan Vieira, asking for their advice. And they said, if you possibly can, do it. So I went and did these gigs, and I'm so glad I did. I got myself into the zone. I had a good talking to myself. And we had 4 amazing gigs. And we had a lot of fun, a lot of laughter. I was able to share some of my story as well, which really impacted people. And it was a powerful 4 days. And people loved it. It was good for me. And it made me kind of refocus a little bit and think, yeah, no, I'm going to crack on until the day I die. As long as there's breath in my lungs, I've been called as an evangelist. That's someone who tells people about Jesus. I discovered as a 13-year-old this wonderful message that there's a God in heaven who loves people, that Jesus died to set people free, and we could have a wonderful friendship with God. And Christians call it the gospel, and gospel means good news, and good news is for sharing. And, having this diagnosis, having this prognosis from the consultants, I've always said, and I've always believed, that God has the final word. My consultant's lovely. I've just been chatting to her, and she's fab, and she always says God bless to me and sends hugs and stuff. But God has got the final word on this.
And where do you go with your faith when you hear news like that? Because I find it difficult in certain situations. I don't know what to pray for. Do you pray that God's will be done? Do you pray for healing? What have you been praying for, Steve?
Do you know what? I take great comfort in the words of Charles Spurgeon, this great preacher, who said, we're immortal until our work is done. And I don't believe my work on earth is done yet. I believe there's lots to be done. But then you're on this crazy pathway of chatting to the medics. I'm believing God can do a miracle. But also in the same week, I had to visit our local hospice and talk about end-of-life care. So that was a crazy couple of days that I don't recall with great relish. But as I said earlier, Gareth, there's beauty to be seen in everything. And I think this has made my faith a lot stronger. I believe in God. I believe he knows what's right. And I just don't want to miss what God is doing. It has been a roller coaster, and I'm clinging to God. Sounds like a Ronan Keating song, that, doesn't it? But it's been a time for me of reprioritising and great gratitude and thinking about what I want to do. Who do I want to hang out with? Who do I not want to hang out with? And there's some amazing people out there, but there's certain people I'd want to hang out with more than others. And I want to spend time with joy givers. The reaction from people has been phenomenal. Been such kindness, but you realise there's a load of wallies out there as well. I had 3 friends take me out for curry night to cheer me up. Over the course of the night, we had a lovely meal, but I had 3 stories of people they knew had died of cancer. Oh. It's not helpful.
I think people don't quite know what to say. And one thing I found difficult is, do I text you every day to say, how are you? Because then is that reminding you that actually I'm ill? Do I just completely ignore the fact I don't know what to do?
No, people don't. And it's amazing who has come out of the woodwork and text me, pals that I've not seen from school when I left school 40 years ago. Some people have got in contact via Facebook, and then other people who would have around for dinner twice a week. We've not heard anything from them for 6 months because they don't know what to say. I mean, for us, we set up a WhatsApp group. I mean, I've been putting bits on Facebook. The last time we put something major on Facebook when we got this news, I think we had 1,000 shares of it, plus, not hundreds of thousands, but 10, 20,000 people sharing it all over the place and people commenting, and it just gets a little bit much. Or we've set up one of these great WhatsApp groups that people can't comment on. So once a week, my wife Becca puts down some information. But even then certain people want more information, and it can be a bit draining. And sometimes I just put a thumbs up, how are you? And they don't like that sometimes. And we've been at various events. We were down at New Wine, which was wonderful. And quite a few people came up, how are you, Steve? And I said, yeah, I'm good. No, how are you? I said, yeah, I'm good. No, how are you? What's the prognosis? And you think, flipping it, you're not getting this. I don't want to talk about it. It's so lovely to forget you've got cancer and you can just crack on. So it's really hard, and I know people mean well. But for people like me and people going through stuff, just don't tell them stuff about everyone that you know who've died of this. It doesn't raise your faith.
And you mentioned about preparations and things being put in place. It must be a very strange conversation to have, because if I think about my own mortality, and nothing is promised, is it, in this life? No time is guaranteed. But when I think about my own mortality, I think of me being a wrinkly old man who's lived until he's 90, 95, hopefully 100 actually. And I've got my family around me. I've got grandkids, maybe great-grandkids. But nobody at the age you are and the age that I am want to think about the fact that actually that may happen sooner rather than later.
Yes, it's interesting when you pay for your funeral. So I've done that in advance. And I've just put down things for my Thanksgiving service. I'd love a Thanksgiving service, and who I want to speak and songs I'd like. And I'm hoping, we won't have to open that file for 20 years at least. But yeah, I paid for my... I feel very strongly about funerals. I know none of us like funerals, so I've gone for one of these super cheap ones where they pick up the body. It's called unattended funeral. No one goes. This is cheerful chatter, isn't it? And they literally take your body away. No one's there. They burn it. As far as I'm concerned, they flush me down the toilet. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, because I believe I'll be in heaven. But I just love maybe a month later for hundreds and hundreds of people to come together and cry a little bit, but laugh a lot and reflect on my life.
Are you scared of dying?
No, not at all. Listen, I think I'm in a win-win situation. If I beat this, if I'm around beyond September, and I really believe I will, I feel fit and well now. I have been rough the last few weeks. If I beat this, then I've won. And if I don't, I go to be with Jesus, and I've won. I can't fail. Win-win, Gareth.
Such a positive attitude, Steve.
Do you know what? And we've seen so much joy and fun in things. I mean, I've been really rough the last few weeks with this thing, colitis, that that the cancer drugs have given me. Going to the toilet, world record, I think it was about 9 times in a day. And I felt so rough, and they went in and had more drugs, and I'm on steroids now. So you'll be able to see my guns. Sun's out, guns out. But I even had to have one of these endoscopies where they put a camera where the sun doesn't shine. But even that was, absolutely hilarious. They were all crying with laughter. I went in there, you get ready. They started to put this camera inside you, and on the radar, Barry White comes on. My first, my last, my everything. I said, this has killed the passion somewhat. And you see a camera inside you. But we've had some amazing times, and I feel closer to God than I ever have been. We've had an amazing, we've called it a summer of joy. Some friends set up a Just Giving campaign to mean we could do things that we'd love to do. We've not been to Bermuda or anything like that, but going out for meals and not worrying about paying for the whole family and hanging out. And we're going out for an Italian tonight with the girls, and holding them close has just been beautiful.
Do you know what? We aren't going to sign off in a weird way. And I don't want this to be like, any sort of swan song, because there's so many people praying for you, Steve. And
Absolutely.
Every event that I've been to, there's so many people who love you and they care about you. And you've touched, and you'll continue to touch, so many lives. And I'm sure you don't mean to be brave, but you are. You're a brave man. And to be taking this news how you are, it will encourage a lot of people who are maybe going through similar things, because I don't think I'd be able to do it like you are. I don't think I'd be able to even do an interview or to carry on at all. I'd probably be sat at home feeling sorry for myself.
Do you know what? Some of these opportunities have been amazing. And, people said, you have a death sentence. Well, I think it's a life sentence to make the most of every day. And I've just been challenging people. That why don't we all live our lives as if we only had 5 months to go? What would you do? What would you do differently? Where would you go? What dreams that you've had all these years that you think, let's do it now, why not? All those things, cracking on with projects, go on a holiday, hugging the people you love, sorting things out. I think, what a great opportunity. And I've loved being able to challenge people to do that themselves. Life is precious. Life is an adventure. Crack on. Who knows what tomorrow will bring?
Do you know what, Steve? Thank you so much for doing this, because this is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted you and me, not in the big fat quiz of the week setting or not in a work setting, just to have a chat. Two friends who have known each other for a long time, and I know that everybody will continue to pray for you. And just stay well, won't you? We love you very much.
Thank you. Can I just finish with something? Because people say, what's God been saying in all this to you recently? And it's the same 3 things. It's, I love you, I'm with you, try not to be scared.